What's going on, everyone? It's Mike back again. And honest to God, if there's a problem with the video, the audio, just any of these, I'll give up. Like, I give up. Me and John have spent hours trying to correct the audio problems. We then moved to Zoom. We didn't like Zoom because you didn't like the fact you couldn't see both of us at the same time. So we moved back to StreamYard, and now we're hopefully doing it this way. And hopefully there is no audio problems. So again, as always, please feedback in the comments if the audio is off. Anyway, let's talk about our new manager. And today, his press conference, his little interview before the game that would come out at about 4:00. He's come across really well, hasn't he?
He spoke really well, mate, and he said some positive things, which, you know, what I liked about it, it's basically what we've said on here. It's as if he's watched the Blue Boys Network, where me and you have said many times, it's not going to change every night. And his words were, there is going to be bumps in the road. It's not going to happen overnight. But he loves the club. His family are looking forward to coming to Goodison again, to see him managing and to watch Everton again. And he come across very positive, you know. But you know what I liked? There was a comment he said where he said, if he hasn't already said it, he's going to say it to the players. Maybe the players need to look at themselves, because we've been through that many managers. So maybe the players have got to look at themselves and start thinking, well, are we working hard enough? Are we doing enough for this blue shirt? Are we doing enough for the manager? And basically he said, I'm going to instill that into them to make them give that little bit more. And if, you know, even like little things like show what they've got, because there's a lot of players, in his opinion, the way he was talking, have held back. They haven't showcased what skill they've got, whether they couldn't be because they couldn't be asked, or whether they didn't want to show it for the previous manager, or there was, you know, they were getting held back from them showing what they've got and what they can do. I'm not standing here speaking and saying that these squad of players are blessed with all kinds of skills and they're the most skillful players in the world. I'm not. But the way David Moyes was talking, he thinks he can get more out of these players, and that's all we can ask for. He's going to give 100% himself. And again, he sounded like his first press conference where he come across and he said, I'll give my all and I'll make sure the players give their all. And that's all we can ask for. There's going to be bumps in the road, as he said. But I thought he spoke well of the club. He was made up to be asked to come back. I think that was abundantly obvious that, you know, he's proud to be Everton manager again. And he did say he doesn't see himself being here for 11 years again, but for the time he is here, he wants us towards the top of the league. He didn't say he was going to challenge for anything. He didn't promise trophies. He didn't promise cup finals, because we've had managers in the past who have promised that, Michael, and it hasn't materialised. So I think he was honest in his own assessment. He was honest about the club as an assessment as well. But it was good to hear him speaking positive, to say that he wants us to be at the top end of the league, not the top 4 or the top 2, but not where we are now. And I thought he come across really well, and it looks like he enjoyed the interview as well. Do you know what, he looked at home at the interview?
Yeah, I think that is spot on. I think the way that you've just explained that is spot on. He came across charismatic. He came across as class. You know, he came across, the first thing he did was he said that he doesn't like manage getting sacked. So, you know, he was paying a little bit of homage to Sean Dyche. He's the only person at Everton that has done that, by the way, because I don't think we've seen a thank you from the players. We haven't seen a thank you from the club. So, you know, for him to come out and just say, you know, it's never nice to see a manager sacked, blah, blah, blah. I just think it shows a bit of class of the man. And we all sit there, everyone sits there and criticises David Moyes. You know, you see it in the media, you see some of our fans doing it, you see other teams' fans doing it. David Moyes, as far as I can tell, has had two really bad stints. One was Manchester United replacing Sir Alex Ferguson, and one was Real Sociedad. It could have probably gone better at Sunderland as well, but that team was poor. Whereas I think he did a good job at West Ham, and I think he'll do a good job at Everton, and I think he did do a good job at Everton the first time round. And I loved how he touched on certain memories. He brought up the Florentina game, and I know it was a painful game in the end, but he remembered the 2-0. He remembered getting Everton into the Champions League. Little things like that meant a lot to him.
Mate, he even went back further than that and spoke about Andy Gray against Bayern Munich, and he wants the crowd to be like that again, the way they celebrated, and he didn't make it about him. He didn't make it about him, and that's what I liked. We've got a game in 2 days' time, and he spoke about, he wants to see Goodison basically rocking, and he wants the fans to get behind the team. And I think there's going to be a good atmosphere from the majority of the Everton fans. We have seen a few people on X saying, well, they're not going to come out from the concourse until the game kicks off. If you don't want to go, there's plenty of people out there who will gladly take your ticket. It's not about David Moyes, and it's not about any individual. It's about Everton Football Club and the predicament that we're in and where we have to be come May. So you can please yourself, and this is to all Everton fans, you can please yourself if you want to cheer them or if you want to give them down the banks. But nothing is bigger than Everton Football Club, whether it be a manager, whether it be a player. So get your ass into the ground from now till the end of May when you can and get behind this team.
Yeah, I'm struggling, and look, I get people's opinions. I like to think that I'm quite open-minded about people's opinions, but I can't understand at this moment in time why anyone won't be there for, even 5-3. Why nobody will be there to see the team out. Why nobody will raise their voice when they need to. I don't quite get it, because this Everton team is they're on their backside. They've been playing a game of football that they haven't liked in let's be fair, years. We haven't seen the best of Njai, albeit he's got the highest dribbling skills and all of that, the highest dribbling amount in the Premier League and all of that. We still haven't seen the best of him because the style of football hasn't suited him. And I'm not saying that David Moyes is magically going to fix that for players. Calvert-Lewin and then Jai and, all of them, if I'm being honest, Jack Harrison. But what I do think will happen is he'll be honest with these players and he'll say, look, you've let these fans down. And I actually get the impression that David Moyes is as much an Everton fan almost as anyone else. Like, he loves the club, and he came out and he said he loves the club. He wants us to be a success. He wants us to be at the top of the league again, roughly, going in the right direction, and that there's a plan and that there's a future. And you could see how happy he was that he would see out Goodison. And, he'd said about taking his dad to a game of football at Goodison before she'd finished. How amazing is it that he's going to be the manager that sees us up in that stadium, and equally he's going to be the manager that takes us into the next one. It must be, as a person, it must be incredible to be David Moyes now, because he, from a managerial career, has gone back to the club, and this is not a dig at Preston, by the way, but he's gone back to the club that made him, and he's going to see through the biggest change in our club's history. It must be incredible to be David Moyes. And I think as fans, we've got to get on his side. We've got to support this team. And I'm never going to say you have to. It's your opinion. But for me, I will be there 100%. I'm there against the Villa. You'll hear me cheering. You'll hear me shouting before the game. You'll hear me cheer. And if there's songs about David, whatever, I will be there 100%. And I'm telling you now, I know there's another few Evertonians sitting very close to me that will also give it both barrels, screaming at the top of his lungs, supporting his team. And that is all it's about, mate. It's a tough game. So let's just talk about this game. It's a tough game for David Moyes to take. But it's the first game under the lights. Are you hoping for some magic?
Mate, I think the crowd will be up for it. I think you'll see more fight from the players. You'll see a game plan. And I'm not saying we should go gung-ho, but you're going to see players who have a bit more freedom. You know, and we've seen that. I know, you know, in the cup game last week, no disrespect to Peterborough, but the players had a bit more freedom. You know, and the manager had only been sacked 3 hours before kick-off, and you could see there was no long balls, a bit more freedom. David Moyes has probably had 2 days training with these players, so you're not going to see a massive difference. But again, he's going to instill unity. And going back to what you were saying before, when David Moyes speaks at Finch Farm or when he speaks at Goodison Park in that changing room, I'd like to think that the players will listen to him, because people will listen to David Moyes. And if you're not listening to him, he'll make sure you hear him. And that's what we need. You know, we don't need the likes of, you know, Ian Woan and Steve Stone. Very timid on the touchline. I've seen someone put in the comments last night. Didn't really get involved. Didn't bollock anyone. They just stood next to Sean Dyche with their hand over the mouth, whispering things to him. Don't want that. I want to see our number 2. And we're probably going to see that with Billy McKinley, you know, screaming at the players if they're not doing something right, getting the assistants involved. That, for me, will lift the players. And I think the players will have had a lift. Obviously, a lot of them didn't like playing under the past regime. He will say the right things to these players, hopefully, that will give them a lift going into a tough game, as you quite rightly say. We can't go gung-go. But I'll tell you what, we'll give it more of a fight than what we have done in the past couple of years at Goodison Park. And we'll also have an identity about us, and we'll also have players playing in the right position, as I say, with a bit of freedom. You're probably going to see a better Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I never thought I'd say that. Funny enough, he trained today. He hasn't been training. He was training today. Dwight McNeil doesn't look like he's made it. But I'm looking at Ndiaye, and then you look at the players that he had at West Ham, and you look at the players that he had in his first stint at Everton, and you look at the likes of Tim Cahill and what David Moyes brought out of him, you know, and other players that he brought into the club. Stephen Pienaar, for example, give their all for this manager if they're playing in the right position with a game plan. And I think you're going to get even more. Listen, I love Ndiaye. I absolutely love him. But I think we're going to see an even better Ndiaye under a David Moyes, the way he will play him, because he will know. We say he's only had 2 days training. David Moyes will have been watching Everton. He will see what these players have been told to do and how they haven't been able to express themselves. That will be the first thing David Moyes will work on, giving certain players a bit more freedom to try and change the game in our favour, to try and bring other players, to try and make other players better. And in my opinion, the likes of Ndiaye will make other players look better, because he's the star man. We've seen that at Goodison, you know, and away from home. He shines because he seems as if he's a level above everybody else. I think the way he will be allowed to play under David Moyes, I think it'll give the other players a lift as well. And I think you're all going to see blood, sweat and tears, which is the comment I always use, on them shirts on Thursday. It is a tough game, as you quite rightly say, but I don't think we're going to go out with a whimper, and we're definitely not going to be set up to get a draw at home.
Yeah, I also think as well, do you know the player that I'm most looking forward to under David Moyes? And this is going to, no one would guess this. It's Timmy Rabuna. Because he's injured. But when I watched him, and I watched him receive the ball and turn and carry the ball and run at people, he reminded me of Ross Barkley.
Mate, I think you're going to... Sorry, go on.
And I'm not saying that David Moyes was the best person with Ross. I'm not. But Tim ultimately is a different type of player. He won't score as many goals as I think Ross did. But I definitely see bits of Tim in Ross. And I think when you've got a player that on the transition can carry the ball, like we've seen when he's had players at West Ham, Declan Rice did it. Players like that who can carry the ball out with that freedom and confidence and a bit of pace and a bit of strength and a bit of trickery. Yeah, I'm quite looking forward to seeing what David Moyes does with Tim and that midfield, because it really wouldn't surprise me if David Moyes builds the team around it.
I think we can be excited to see what David Moyes can get out of a few players, Michael. Again, we'll mention him and as you quite rightly pointed out before, he might get more out of a Jack Harrison and play him in his proper position on the left. Mangala, I think he's been really good for us. You might even see more of Mangala. We've said on here, Dominic Calvert-Lewin or whoever plays up front for Everton are isolated, and I've been one of Dominic Calvert-Lewin's biggest critics, because when you're isolated, I still think you've got to work hard, and we don't see that. But I think you'll see that under David Moyes. Listen, we're not standing here blowing what sounds like we're blowing smoke up his eyes. We're not saying David Moyes is a Pep Guardiola or a Jurgen Klopp, but it's better than the past manager, and he will get more out of this team. It won't be fancy. He's admitted that. He said that in his video. It's not going to be fancy because we can't afford to be fancy. We've said that on here. But you'll have players, Michael, who are allowed to play their game, and they weren't allowed to do that under the previous manager. And when you've got certain individuals who we know and we've spoke about off air, we've said there's more in that player if he was played in the right position. You're going to see it. And I think it gives everyone a lift. There'll be a game plan. There'll be a structure to the team. He'll play players in the right position. There won't be square pegs in round holes. Don't get that with David Moyes. You don't get that with David Moyes. And I think inadvertently, it lifts everyone. That'll lift the crowd. I don't think the crowd will be lifted. Well, the majority of the crowd won't lead lifting on Wednesday. I just think it's a tough game, as we quite rightly say. But I think the fans need to be the 12th man on Wednesday, because, again, as you quite rightly pointed out, it's a tough game, and I don't think Everton will lay down. Even if Everton go 1-0 down, you look at this season and last season when we've gone 1-0 down quite early, you know the plan of the game. I think if you go 1-0 down under David Moyes, and again, we've seen it in his past clubs, Everton and West Ham most notably, there's still fight there in the team to try and get back into the game. We haven't seen that. So I think, we can rely on the players where it's all about mentality. And you pointed out before, if you're not going to get behind the manager, get behind the team, because the players' confidence is on the floor. It's on the floor. They need lifting. They need an arm around the shoulder. They need a structure to their play, and they need to be told what to do. We've seen comments, whether they're true or not, on social media where the players didn't think there was a much attention to detail from Sean Dyche, and basically it was the same every week. Sean Dyche didn't try to get the players out, each individual player. But David Moyes, he'll work with each player to see what they're capable of and try and knit that into the team. And I think that's where we play more as a unit when he's allowing them to do that.
Yeah. Just briefly, do you think he'll make any mega changes to the team?
I think Patterson starts. I think Calvert-Lewin will be back. I think Mikalenko starts. I think, to be honest with you, that the change that he could make, but I'm unsure if he will because of the situation we're in, is putting Jake O'Brien in with Jarlath Branthwaite.
Yeah.
Tarkowski has been hot and cold this season. We know he started the season with a glute injury. He picked that up in pre-season. He hasn't been the Tarkowski we know. He is getting older. And I just think when you play the likes of Aston Villa, who are fast on the transition, and they've got players who will run at you and try and get behind you, and try and put you on your ass if they're running at you. I think with the likes of Branthwaite and Jake O'Brien, if they can work together as a good centre-half partnership, I think there's a good chance that you might see a lot more of Jake O'Brien playing with Jarlath Branthwaite.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, I could see him going for that. I don't think he'll go with anything radical like 4-4-2s and things like that. I don't think he'll do that. It'll be interesting to see. Apparently, and I'm just reading some of the stats, but apparently we're in the league, we're winless against Villa in 11. So, I mean,
What a
it's
time
tough,
to be them.
tough job for him, but we'll see. You got a score prediction for us?
I'm going 1-1. I think we have more chance of winning Sunday against Tottenham than what we do against Villa. Tottenham are very hot and cold. Villa are a good outfit. 9 times out of 10, you know what you're getting with Aston Villa, and 9 out of 10 games they'll perform. You can't say that about Tottenham. We'll talk about Tottenham, obviously. I just think it's a 1-1, and hopefully we can get the 3 points on Sunday. 4 out of his first 2 games, Villa and Tottenham, you take that.
Yeah, I think we win this game 1-0. It just feels like a big game, you know, under the lights, the new manager with a new ethos, whether it's a good attacking style of play or not. I mean, it sounds silly. I'm actually not bothered this season. I just want to stay up. But it is a big game. It is a big game. There's no getting around it. We'll see. One thing just to correct for anyone that goes to Goodison Park on Thursday, like John just mentioned, that you will have missed the game. The game is on Wednesday. But
anyone who goes to Goodison Park for 5 to 3 on Wednesday, you will be early because it's our 7:30 kickoff.
It is indeed a 7:30 kickoff. Well done, John. You are correct. So, guys, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Tough game, tough game, but yeah, looking forward to it thoroughly. And yeah, we'll see you there. I've got nothing else to add, John. Have you?
No. Now it's quiet on the transfer front, which I didn't expect it to be lively with him only being at the club 2 days. I'm sure in the next 10 days to 2 weeks, we'll probably start seeing some players linked and hopefully trying to get some over the line to improve the squad.
Yeah, what I have found interesting is that Ernest Nwame, that has gone very quiet. And that makes me think that David Moyes doesn't necessarily want him. And he now appears to be pulling the strings.
By all accounts, it was a Kevin Thelwell sign, and Everton haven't officially put a bid in. So obviously it looks like, as you say, it's stalled. David Moyes doesn't obviously like what he sees if we don't sign Big Ernie. So we move on to the next target. I'm sure he'll have some after a week of training with this squad of players.
Yeah. Bring back Darren Gibson up the top. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, guys, and we will see you soon. Peace.